Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the TV Confidential podcast, or better yet, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or wherever you listen to our podcast.
Well, hi, this is Lindsay Bloom, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Penny Singleton, you asked for it.
Hi. You know, ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, there were two great musical shows born to Broadway. One was Good News. The other one, Follow Through. I remember those shows. They were wonderful. I especially remember that in Good News, there was a little Irish girl with a turned-up nose, about so tall and quite young, who sang a lovely ballad. Maybe I can remember it. Oh, yes.
Ed Robertson with a reminder that Stephanie Powers will join us in our second hour. Plus, we'll continue our conversation about the 25th anniversary of The Sopranos. We hope you stay tuned for both those segments. In the meantime, Steve Randisi is on the line with us. Steve Randisi, author of Penny Singleton, a biography, available through our friends at Bear Manor Media. You can also find it at Amazon.com, where books are sold online. Another notable name, legend really, in the world of motion picture, is Irving Thalberg, who was the head of MGM at the time when Penny started her early career. And you talked about how she learned to take comedy seriously from working with Jack Benny. In many respects, when she first worked in movies, she came from vaudeville, she came from live theater, which is a totally different working environment from working in motion pictures, the least of which is because you're used to working in front of she was used to working in front of a live audience, yes, and the dynamics of that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
She was used to working in front of a live audience, and the dynamics of playing off that audience, which is totally lost when you work in movies, because with very, very few exceptions, nothing in the movies is shot sequentially. Everything is done. You do these pages first because we're doing exterior shots today, and we got to get these shots while the light is good, and then we'll do the interior scenes later on. So it requires a different skill set, which Penny eventually mastered when she started working in movies and later on in television. And at the time, she was not enamored of working in movies, and so she actually asked to get out of her contract. And that led to a very famous meeting with the boy wonder, Irving Thalberg, the head of MGM at the time.
Yes, absolutely. She went into his office, and she said, look, I want to go back east and work on the stage. And he let her out of her contract with the proviso that if she ever went back to Hollywood and got back into the picture business, MGM had first dibs on her, because they were offering her other film roles that she didn't want to do at the time. And Thalberg was the one who got her out of it. Now, as it turned out, she did return east, and she did summer stock up in Ivoryton, Connecticut, and that's when the MGM brass, I forget his name, but he was the big emissary who was the talent coordinator. It's in the book, and the name escapes me. But anyway, they were wooing her to go back to California at the behest of Hunt Stromberg, who was producing After the Thin Man. And that, of course, was an MGM film, as all the Thin Man movies were, under the MGM banner. So she went back in 1936, and she worked at MGM again. But that didn't last. And then she went to Warner Brothers, and then finally RKO before Columbia offered her the part of Blondie.
Well, my big takeaway from the Irving Thalberg story is that even though, and you point this out in Penny Singleton, a biography, Steve, even though Thalberg had an unerring knack for finding the right property for the right actor, which made him very unusual for executives in the studio system. And so you get the sense that he probably said, if you hang with us a little longer, Penny, we'll find the right sort of movie for you that you will shine. But he listened to her, and he let her out, which says a lot about him as a person and beyond his prowess as an executive.
Well, he was married to Norma Shearer, so I guess he understood actors.
Yeah.
And it's important to point out that she was actually Dorothy McNulty at the time. She hadn't changed her name yet to Penny Singleton. She became Penny Singleton in 1937 when she married Dr. Lawrence Singleton, the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very prominent, socially active Beverly Hills dentist. A very good-looking guy. And she married him in 1937, and she took the name Singleton, which she used basically as a pseudonym when she had some poems published. And she had good luck with it. She got published, almost instantly. And she said, Penny Singleton. She took the name Penny, but she collected pennies as a girl. She kept them in a jar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, pennies were symbols of good luck. So she wrote a group of children's poems that got published under the name Penny Singleton. And she decided to keep that name as, her professional moniker. But when she was at MGM, when she did Good News and Love in the Rough, and even after The Thin Man, she was still billed under her real name, which was Dorothy McNulty.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
Hi, this is Paul Dooley. You're listening to TV Confidential. Good luck.
Penny Singleton, a biography available through our friends at Bear Manor Media. You can also find it at Amazon.com where books are sold online. 1937, she became Penny Singleton. That was the year she took on her professional name. 1 year later, she started her long run as the star of the Blondie movies. Why do you think the Blondie character continues to endure after 85 years plus, Steve? And why do you think Penny succeeded as the movie Blondie?
I think she succeeded as the movie Blondie because there was an element of believability in her performance. She was a beautiful woman, but not threateningly beautiful. Now, it's important to point out that the first actress that Columbia hired, a woman by the name of Shirley Dean, she was a little bit too glamorous and a little bit too brash in her approach to the role. So the Columbia executives were not happy with that, and they were looking for somebody else. And they brought in Penny. She was a brunette at the time. She's not a natural blonde. She was a brunette at the time. And she did a screen test with Eddie Quillen. And it was interesting because they're both native Philadelphians. And she brought to the role, a certain wholesome quality that people could identify with. And it rings through to this day. Even now in 2024, the Blondie movies are still shown every Saturday morning on the Movies channel. And I think they're in their 5th or 6th year now. That says a lot about all these comedies from years ago that still get airtime in 2024. Look at the Three Stooges. They get 2 hours of national television airtime in 2024. I think that's amazing.
I think that's amazing. It also speaks to two things, Steve. One, funny is funny. Funny is funny, and funny will transcend generations because more often than not, what was funny 90 years ago, it remains funny today, provided it's based in a very real, relatable type of situation, whether it has to do with home or work or whatever. and
Sure.
And the fact that we have so many more outlets that speak to people of a certain age that keep the Three Stooges alive and to keep the Penny Singleton Blondie movies alive because they know funny is funny.
Right. And as you mentioned, there's certain elements of those stories that are still relevant today. Asking the boss for a raise, getting your vacation canceled because the boss wants you to work and he wants you to relinquish your vacation time, or the boy or the daughter or the child, your child has a dog that got lost. I mean, these are things that never go out of style. And as Penny pointed out, these are slices of life that never get old and people could relate to and associate with. And if you want to have a successful series, I don't care if it's in the movies or on television or whatever medium, you got to have kids in there. Kids and animals make the show. And, you have scenes in the Blondie movies where the dogs are chasing each other around the house. And, kids today could watch that and laugh at that because these are things that still go on in these troubled times that we're living in now. I think that's one of the reasons why the films have held up. And another thing that's important to remember is that Penny Singleton, the actress, had a lot of Blondie Bumstead in her as a real person. She really was apple pie, motherhood, and the American way. That was Penny Singleton off screen. And I know that for a fact because I knew her for 22 years. Arthur Lake was a lot like Dagwood, too. He was a very lovable guy and very fun to be around. I spent a great day with him in 1983 at his house. And he could be bumbling occasionally, but it was very, very witty, very, very smart, and very fun to be around. And one of the things that I wanted to point out in this book, I wanted to dispel the rumor that the two of them didn't get along, which is totally untrue. So I hope I made that abundantly clear in the text.
Steve Randisi interviewed Arthur Lake. He also knew Penny Singleton for more than 20 years. And as we mentioned at the top of our program, he knew many of the people that he interviewed. It gives an extra element of authenticity that you don't see in a lot of film biographies today because you understand the person behind the personality. That's great insight that the Steve bring to Penny Singleton biography. Available through our friends at Bear Manor Media. You can also find it at Amazon.com where books are sold online. We'll talk some more about Penny Singleton in a few weeks when we play part 2 of our conversation with Steve Randisi here on TV Confidential. In the meantime, we'll take a quick time out, then we'll welcome Stephanie Powers. Stephanie Powers, the actress known around the world as Jennifer Hart on Heart to Heart, and then we'll continue our look at the 25th anniversary of The Sopranos on television. All that more when we come back for hour number 2 of TV Confidential. Please stay with us. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to the TV Confidential podcast, or better yet, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or wherever you listen to our podcast.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it.
800-365-4216. 800-365-4216. 800-365-4216. That's 800-365-4216.